Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Motherland, Fort Salem. A great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, picking up with the attack started at the end of the episode. The entirety of Fort Salem is being attacked, and now it's like, all right, so what do we do? The witch plague is like spreading. It's in multiple spots, but then later on we find out it's actually converging into one spot, but we'll get to that soon enough. So it's actually thanks to Tally that they ended up finding out how to fight the Camarilla. What was it like? They basically had to counter I forgot what it was. Tally did something specific. It was like a certain like seed she hit to counter. I don't know whether it was like you have to like do, I don't know if it's like the opposite of the seed that they're using, or whether it's just, or the actual same frequency to counter it. Whatever the case may be, they were able to dismantle it. And so now it's like, right, we could all take out the spree together in this regard. So, I mean, not the spree, the Camarilla. Petra and Nigda end up having to work together. It's like, yeah, this isn't a reprieve from everything, but together, no more just army versus spree. This is spree and army versus our greatest enemy, the Camarilla, which we had Dr. Albin reveal himself, being the smug bastard he is. He's like, I just want to see the end. And I thought it was interesting. Like, he points out to Nigda, he's like, actually, we should be thanking you. You and the spree were able to do what no one has been able to do in history, turn public opinion of witches so negatively. Like, so you did all work for us. Like, you basically rolled out the red carpet for our return. That's why so many people rally behind, like, oh, gotta stop the witches. And like, now that just makes our cause that much stronger. Otherwise, we just look like a whole bunch of murdering sociopaths. Now we look like saviors and heroes to certain groups of people. So, and also he's like, oh, I've been wanting to meet Petra Bellwether. It's like, I'm going to let you know that I am going to go find your daughter after this. You know, it's just like, once again, just a smug bastard. He's also obviously after Rael. But yeah, because they ended up finding out from the squad about like how to deal with the Camarilla, they were able to survive as well. So Nick does kind of let loose a little because of that. But that does kind of rotate through her head of like, right, I am partially responsible. Yeah, I was trying to do what I believe was right, but it kind of paved the way for this. Sarah, I thought was, it's like, despite everything, it's like, what can I do, General? She's like, thank you, Sarah. She's like, of course, General. It's like, right, her demotion and stuff like that. It's like, no, like, this was the right thing to do. I had to be taken off the board. So her and Anacostia go check on the other witches who were slaughtered in their sleep and had their vocal cords ripped out. But in the process of the fight, Sarah loses her biddies, which is like, wow, most of those biddies have been with us since the beginning of the series. So for it to be a situation where like the ones that we've kind of followed this entire time, we haven't really gotten to know them, but still it's kind of sad because they are part of Sarah. And the final one kind of giving Anacostia the nod as they are infected with the witch plague, and she gets away. And I was like, wow, because I was like, without the biddies, like that's what's been keeping her alive all this time. But then I was like, if that's the case, I'm curious. I mean, we never found out what Nigda does to look like it's like, yeah, how did you? She's like, yeah, I don't have the same circumstances as you, but she found some other way to kind of keep herself relatively young. So I was wondering, like, could there be something in that vein? But it's already too late, to the point that Sarah's like petrifying, like almost like turning into wood. She straight up turned into wood. I was like, I wonder, is that like a backlash byproduct of the biddies, or just like is that a byproduct of like a witch rapidly aging? Like, I don't know. Like, is Sarah the first witch to ever have those circumstances of like the biddy thing? Like, it's because no other witch does that except for her, because she's a special case, I guess. But it's like, we've never really dived into that too much. But Anacostia, it's like, right, this is like, despite her issues, this is still her mother, and it's like, it's the closest thing she's had to a mother since her own mom died. So like, to see that happening in front of you, it's like, what can I do? Like, and I can't do anything. At the same time, they're still outside dealing with all this witch plague. Hell, even like Rael tried to save one witch from the witch plague, but it still took her over, and she ended up killing herself just so she wouldn't hurt anyone. The three of them, and I was like, whoa. Once again, just shows you the dedication that this like this group of this this army of witches have for each other. It's like, right, I'd rather kill myself than like possibly be the reason why anyone else dies, you know? I don't want to be responsible. And so they end up finding out the source of it all, and it's Penelope. I was like, damn, dude. Because I kept wondering, like, why is that witch at the end of the previous episode the one? I was like, the moment Penelope got pricked, I was like, no, it's going to start with her, but apparently it didn't. But we find out, like, hers is a special case of, like, it's meant to be a thing of she can keep going afterwards because she's meant to spread it out because all the witch plague was supposed to converge back to her. And no matter what Raelle was trying to do, because in her position, like, it was basically almost like a symbiote where it had taken control of her, except she wasn't in control at all. She didn't even realize what was going on, which made it even sadder and tragic. And they had no choice but to kill her, because if they didn't, it would have kept going, because Raelle, like, the power she has isn't enough. Maybe, you know, it's not enough, because that's just too much concentrated witch plague. Which, also, side note, they're able to kind of go in and out of the witch plague, the Camarilla. It makes sense. It only goes after, like, goes after witches. Obviously, there's the perfectly timed camera crew and everything, which get to that later. But it is like they're just able to come out of the darkness, and once again, Alvin's smug face, and then he creeps back into the darkness. Dude, I cannot wait till he gets it. Oh, he's going to get it super hard, and I can't wait. But in that moment, like, that just shows you, like, right, they can blend into it because it's never going to affect them because they're not witches. Raelle had to hold the witch plague back while Abigail's the one that dealt the final blow, and just, like, legitimately we saw Penelope. Like, if this was any other network, if this was like a M-rated show, you would have seen probably blood and guts everywhere. That would have just been heartbreaking, but it's just because I think the show's like TV-14, so, like, they kind of don't, they show it but don't really show it, you know what I mean? I mean, they all had to agree to it, even Tally, but it's like, right, there was no saving her. She was already too far gone. There was no, like, fix, like, you can't stop the witch plague at that point, so they just had to destroy her because she'd basically become a witch bomb in her own right, a witch killing bomb specifically. At the same time, like, the Khalida and Adil situation, he came and rescued her because she was about to get attacked, and before he could hurt Adil even more, like, Khalida attacked, pretty much turned the dude into molten rock. I was like, yo, both of you are getting some brutal kills in, because we saw Adil just crumple people to paper. That's, ugh. But she crossed that line. And even later on, apologizing to Adil, she's like, I didn't realize, like, I never put myself in your shoes, understanding why you did what you did, until I was in that circumstance myself, until, like, I almost was in a position to lose you. So she's like, I'm not going to run anymore. I'm going to fight, you know? And even she's warmed up to Abigail, because I think for her it is a situation of you are the what you brought, what kind of light you've shown to my brother, and also just like what kind of a good impact you've been on him. I think she's kind of warmed up to her, because I'm sure, like, personality wise, like, Abigail and Khalida would probably get along well. But after everything, you know, they're all reeling from, like, right, the devastation. I mean, you look at Fort Salem, it's like there's just death everywhere. It's just like, man, that's just heavy. Like, that was a heavy hit. Because even, like, Petra's like, all right, where's this person? This person. Yeah, a lot of, like, their hierarchy people, like, died during that. They lost a lot. Like, 61 at the very least had, like, their vocal cords ripped out. It's like, Jesus, it was bad. Part of me wondered, because of it, like, I'm like, are they going to set up, like, a Tally and Grigori situation? It seemed like they I don't know, he's kind of just, he seemed like he could, like, definitely, that end up being a thing. Maybe not, but it definitely felt like he kind of got that vibe. But in the aftermath of everything, I even like that conversation with him, like, yeah, you killed an innocent girl, but what you did took, you know, courage and thinking. Like, the fact is, what you did the right thing, but it still won't stop it. It's going to haunt you for the rest of your lives. It's not something you just get over. But the fact is, do know that you saved my life, every life here, by doing what you did. Like, that was a sacrifice. There was nothing else that can be done. You made the right choice in that decision. It doesn't make it any easier. I mean, at the same time, too, we had the whole situation with the fact is that Sarah should be dead, but she's, the whole thing of like, yeah, she's just too stubborn to die. And she asked Anacostia to take her to the mother and also bring Rael and her unit. And honestly, I teared up. I was breaking down a little bit. I'm never going to shy away from the fact is, I'll admit when I cry during TV shows, I never shy away from that. Because I have to be more in tune with my emotions, because I'm the type of person that buries stuff. So I have to put myself in a position to be a lot more open about how I feel a lot of times. But nevertheless, like Anacostia, like crying over her, being like, we've never had words before, but now when need words the most, they won't come, And it's just like, oh God, like I said, it's her mother. It's like, how will I be able to go on without you? Like, I've always been able to keep going forward because I know you're there. And she's like, you'll find a way. And each one of them, first Abigail being like, you've always kind of, pushed me into becoming the better leader that I am. Rael, about you pushed me to, learn how to control this power. And if I didn't have this power, we wouldn't all be here tonight. Because of that power, I was able to save a lot of lives. And even Tally being like, yeah, like, I never could understand before now all the choices you made, and might not have always agreed with them, but now, having made the choice she made the last night with Penelope, it put things in a different perspective for her. It's like, right, like that heavy burden, I don't know how you were able to carry it this entire time, but you were worried that like us, but you had to carry that alone, but you also had other people around. Like, don't worry about it, we will be okay. You've made us strong enough that we will carry that burden for you. And then, her saying thank you and joining the mother, the mycelium and everything. I was like, oh, that was beautiful. And then it was the goodbye sister. And then Anacostia saying goodbye. I was like, it better not, it's going to be mother, isn't it? And she said mother. I was like, oh, tears literally fell down my cheeks. I was like, oh, that was such a gut punch. Because they just said goodbye, pause, mother. I was like, oh, God, that's so beautiful and so sad and heartbreaking. I'm like, oh, dude. Rael calling her dad and Scylla, because Scylla tried to make him feel okay, being like, no, she's gonna be okay. He's like, I said that all the time when it came to Willa, and I was like, oh. But he's glad to hear his daughter's okay. He's like, I'm gonna worry about you all the time. You're my daughter. But her and Scylla talking about, it's like, she's like, I love you. Like, in that moment, I didn't know if I was going to make it or not. Like, all I could think about was you and not ever wanting to be separate from you again. I love you. And I'm like, it is interesting to see how their story play out. I honestly would have never thought they'd find their way back to each other, regardless of, like, their relationship being built on a lie. Like, everything that they have been through, like, it doesn't change the fact is, like, it hurt more because Rael legitimately fell in love with her. So, but they found their way back to each other because it's like, in all honesty, Scylla kind of brought her mom back to her in her life. So there is some forgiveness. There is a complicated nature of it, but I think they've worked past at least a good chunk of it. I think it's still going to be there, but I think they've worked past a lot of it. But then we had the vice president showing up. I'm like, he's up like, oh, my daughter, I saw what happened on camera and stuff like that. I'm like, we're not going to talk about the fact is that it was most likely Alvin, and it turns out to be him. I knew it the moment we saw the back of his head last episode. I was like, that's that doctor dude. I knew it because they made sure not to show his face. But I was like, we're not talking about that, because he was like, yeah, what happened to my daughter happened moments after I left. I was like, oh, it is interesting timing that you happened to leave before all that went down, huh? And it's like, he basically wants charges brought up on Rael, Tally, and Abigail because of Penelope's murder, which I'm like, first and foremost, it's like, I guess, because I was about to say, like, it is like a necessary sacrifice type of situation because there was no way to save her. But also, like, I was thinking in the back of my mind, I was like, you planned this, you prick. Like, I've said it before and I said it again. We didn't have to get to the ending. I was like, I don't trust him. He's behind all this. Because I will always go back to the fact is, one, how did they know about Rael's powers? The only, like, unofficial person, well, he's unofficial, but he's unofficial because, like, it was mainly just, like, witches and people from the army there when she was doing her thing. He was, like, the only civilian there, at least to my recollection. I'm like, so I figured he had to be the one that leaked the information about Rael. So, like, that's why I'm like, he's been on my, like, suspicion list for a while. But the moment that all went down, too, that's why I was just kind of like, I don't know, man. But now he wants to make them seem like the bad guys, which they immediately get locked up. Em and the others try to stand up for him, but then Petra's like, stand down and have to respect the hierarchy and commanding order. So they end up getting arrested, put it in the same cell as Nick does. She's like, at the very least, I'll be killed and I'll be a martyr. You guys, I feel bad for you. But even she talked to Tally, because it is a whole conversation of, did we do the right thing? Like, did we do more harm than good? Because Tally's like, what do? We took Alder out of the equation, and now we get attacked. Like, she's like, did we actually help them in the long run? You know, it's like, yeah, we both tried to do what we believed was right, but it's like, maybe we just armed our enemy. Because the thing is, like, you know, Petra did ask, like, how did they even get past our defenses? And Isadora's kind of suggesting, like, well, maybe it's because that was all set up by Sarah, so remember she stepped down. It's like, no. And Anacostia looks into it. It's like, okay, you let this camera crew in. He was like, yeah, they're the ones that followed me. She's like, there was camera crews from here and here. And he was like, no, those aren't my signatures. And Anacostia believes him. It's like, his signature was forged, so... I was about to say, oh, don't tell me, like, you guys are hitting it off, which is ironic considering, like, he's the one that was saying, like, oh, yeah, Vice President Silver, he's a good guy. I was like, oh, boy. The moment that played at the beginning, I was like, I figured that was getting played for irony's sake. I still don't think, even by the end of it, I don't think we as the audience know Silver was responsible, but I don't think the army is aware of it. Because, I mean, hell, yeah, Petra confronting the president, but I don't know if they made that choice and stuff like that later on, or what. Like, meeting with the president, she was probably hoping, like, right, we'll be able to, like smooth this over, but then it's like, nah, like, that's where we go to plan B and rescue them. But, like, that's why I'm like, they still don't know about Silver. But the president is stubborn in her own way. Like, she's not necessarily a bad guy, but she's not the ally you would want her to be. Because all we're focusing on is, oh, look, here's the televised stuff of that unit getting killed. But it's like, your unit, specifically your daughter, Abigail, landing a final blow. But then it's also the situation of, even if that's the case, like, are we not going back to, like, the cameras rolling, showing the beginning? Like, why are we not focusing on that? Like, why are we not focusing on she was targeted because she was a witch? All the witches that we're letting that slide in the conversation. It's like, all that it matters is the perception, because what she's talking about is, like, the not our daughters movement just getting stronger. Obviously, it's leading to Camarilla having more and more support, because it's like, right, if our daughters are found out to be witches, like, that's going to end up happening to them. It's like they're going to be targeted and stuff like that. I mean, it's not going to change anything. The Camarilla is going to come for your kids whether or not. But it's because it's like, I think it's almost the thought of, like, right, if our children get tested and they are witches, like, but it's like, yeah, like, regardless, the Camarilla is still going to find them anyway. You'd rather the army have them, but then argument probably is like, no, we'd rather not. Like, we'd rather just keep them. So, it's, I don't know. Like, I think it's just very short-sighted on the president's part. But it's like, right, they need to be tried and stuff like that. They'll get fair treatment. It's like, no, they won't. Especially, like, with the anti-witch sentiment on the rise. That's definitely not going to happen. Because even Nick was saying that, like, oh, like, the pitchforks and everything. Like, that's been her point. Like, why represent and protect humans? Like, they're going to turn on us just like that. That was always... It's history is just repeating itself. It's just a modern day witch hunt. Like, it's history is literally repeating itself. It's like, yeah, you were able to smooth things over, but this has always been bubbling beneath the surface, and it just took the right unfortunate circumstances to set everything in motion to turn public opinion against witches like this. So, but, like, yeah, I even love, like, it's like, oh, the president's like, every time I say something you don't like, the storm out here gets stronger. It's like, is that, oh, you're going to threaten me with your storms or whatever? Because she's like, oh, be in the storm, like, the bunker or whatever. And she's like, when it's my storm, you'll know. I'm like, ooh. And she tells Anacostia, like, all right, move on it. Let's do this. And they end up rescuing everybody, including Nick Duff from the bus, with a combination of Adil and Khalida, breaking the road, and Scylla using her new whisper to enchant everybody. So the reunions are nice, but they're also very short-lived. So it's like, all right, so, you know, Petra shows up, and Abigail's like, I'm scared. And her mom's like, I'm scared too. She's like, what'd you say? She's like, I'm scared shitless. I'm like, yo, because Abigail's never seen her mom, like, so, like, freaked out. She's like, what did I do? And she's like, you saw an opportunity and grabbed it by your hands. It's like, and now we're in this position. But she's like, yes, the world is falling apart. And she's like, yeah. And Bess, why not take this opportunity to remake it in our image type of thing. It's like, still got that bellwether pride to a certain extent. But Rael and Scylla reunite. Anacostia. Like, I love the whole her and Scylla thing, because like her and Scylla already bonded near the end of season 1, but especially on their excursions to get rid of like the track down the Camarilla this season 2. Like, yeah, for her to hug her and kind of send her off, because it's like, right, protect, sending her and Nicta, which I didn't know you could do that to vehicles too. I thought it was just for faces. It's like, nope, Nicta lights the lighter and it changes the prison bus. I'm like, that's so fascinating. Like, little details like that you could do that. So leaving them in Nicta's hands, and it's like, she's like, oh, I'll try my best to protect him. But even her and Tally being like, oh yeah, look at this. Like, it ended up being what I wasn't expect. Like, I figured they were setting up Tally to kind of be like the next, like they were paralleling like her and Nicta. And it's like, oh yeah, like let's kind of sow some seeds of chaos. It's like, right, you're fugitives now, so we're actually a lot more on the same side now than ever before, even more so now. So they get sent all. Obviously, Anacostia and Petra are going back to base, and it's like, I think it was Scylla that was like, back to the belly of the beast. I feel bad for the beast. I'm like, yeah! Quinn's going with them. Obviously, she can be able to kind of navigate with the channels of the Dodgers and stuff like that, be able to kind of make stuff happen on that front. But that was quite the ending, but like I said, at the end, a deal. And you do, like, it is a situation where the vice president had a Tiffany on his hands. So it's like, right, it sucks I had to kill my daughter, but it's for the greater cause at the end. Because there was something that Alden had said to Petra early in the episode of like, the union of earth and sky have to be perfect. I'm like, what the hell is that? Because she's like, what's that mean? He's like, kind of like, you don't need to know. But I'm like, what does that mean? Like, their whole plan is to wipe out the witch species. So that's why I'm wondering, like, do they know some kind of spell or ancient spell that if the union of earth and sky, like, if they get it just right, they can, like, mass genocide all witches in the world, remove them. I don't know if that's what that's supposed to mean, or maybe it's some ancient Camarilla pledge or something like that. Basically being like, oh, like, earth and heaven have to be united in, like, there being no witches. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that's what that's supposed to mean. Are they bringing about essentially like a anti-witch apocalypse or something? But what I'm unsure of is the ending implying that, because I figured he was working with the Camarilla, but I'm like, is he leading the Camarilla? And then it was like I found out I have a Tiffany on my hands, which we've seen how, once again, because he was very like bleh about the witch thing from the beginning, that I wasn't but it seemed like he was kind of rolling around. The moment he picked Penelope up is when I kind of got worried, and I was like, I think maybe he just felt like, right, he needed time, like the reason why he did. I mean, I guess he had to wait for the perfect time and everything, but I'm just curious, did he still have to be convinced himself? Albin's like, right, steadfast and stay strong in what we do, Mr. President. So they're going to be setting stuff up to probably remove the president from office, because, yeah, she is still abiding by the general public's reaction to stuff, but it is still, she has a lot more, like, basically they want to punish all those who cooperate with witches, and the president, yeah, like, she can kind of stand up against them in certain regards, but she's still pro witches in other regards, because the whole trial thing was supposed to be like, right, that even witches aren't above judgment and stuff like that they can be tried for their crimes type of situation. So once again, how it's any different from like someone stopping like someone who is a literal bomb, like, would you say the same thing? And like with someone who stopped someone who had a bomb vest to their chest, like, would you make that same like argument? That's also the thing of like kind of plays into like the witch prejudice, just because it's just the public perception, and groups like Not Our Daughters, who are like, the backbone of kind of why the Camarilla are able to kind of run rampant like they are that it's able to grow to this point. That's why the president kind of is bending a little bit of a knee to it. But I think they are going to remove her given the opportunity, and Silver's going to become president, and then he's going to shift a lot of things because he's going to be able to have the sympathy of the nation, being like, my daughter was sacrificed. We got to stop this witch stuff. Like, he's going to be able to put witches more, for lack of a better term, their feet to the fire, you know? What that plan in its totality necessarily entails, we'll ultimately have to wait and see. Motherland Fort Salem was renewed for a third and final season. I'd actually gotten a Google notice for an article about it yesterday. I didn't read it. I just caught that headline about this, which is interesting because, like, at the end, Freeform brings up, like, oh, season 3 is coming, but it's like, didn't notice that the whole final season thing, so that's why I had to, like, reconfirm now. But I haven't looked too deeply into it, whether that's a creator standpoint of, like, hey, we want to do a third and final season because this is the idea we have, or whether that was like a Freeform decision of, like, you got one more season to wrap everything up, which took me by surprise because I'm like, it feels like there's so much about this world that we still don't know. There's history we're learning backward, but this seems like a type of show you could really dive into the past. But I guess, like, this ancient enemy of theirs, like, maybe we'll learn more about them and their history and their past going into a third season. So I don't know, but I guess it's like no different from like his Dark Materials, because that's based on 3 books, and it's like there's a lot to those worlds we really don't dive into. It's just like, this is the nature of the world, this is the story that's kind of being told. Maybe the books go a little deeper than the show does, or maybe the show goes a little deeper than the books. I don't know, but that's like, each season is a book. That's why that show's only 3 seasons, well, coming back for its third and final season, which makes sense. So maybe it's something of that vein of nature of, like, this is all the story we want to tell. Like, a lot of that history is interwoven and just, like, it's in the background, but it's not the main point. The main point is this arc, this story we want to tell. This is what it's going to be. So, I mean, once again, it's kind of interesting to know, like, we're probably going to be cutting back to, like, Fort Salem and all the army-related stuff, but, like, while they're kind of under the iron boot, that is Silver, while he's making his machinations and plans with the Camarilla who are running rampant. But, like, you got Raelle, Abigail, Tally, I think it's Khalida, Adil, Quinn, and Scylla, and Nicta all together. Like, on the run and stuff like that. So what that necessarily is going to look like as they're fugitives, dealing with not just the public, but even the Camarilla, who's backing the public, who's being backed by the public to a certain extent. I also didn't talk about it beforehand. There is the whole thing with Sarah at the end. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. So I guess she becomes an even more of a vessel. Like, she's becoming another vessel for the mycelium, I think. She might, maybe because she is straight up dead, that's making it so that it's channeling more into her. Or maybe at the very least, maybe it's not. I mean, I think it's supposed to be like she's going to come back and she's going to, like, be like the shining star to all witches with this. I don't know how that's going to help and how that's going to work in conjunction with Raelle. Eventually, probably, like, she will return and she'll take the mycelium from inside of Raelle and be that herself. Like, whether she's going to be like the physical manifestation of the mother, like, going to be everything, like, everything's getting poured into her. So, like, the mycelium might disappear because it might just all be in her, like, because yes, Raelle's connected to it, but only a fragment of the mycelium actually came in contact. It's just on a psychic link level, all of it's there. So maybe all of it's going to get poured into Sarah's body, you know? Maybe it's almost kind of like a full circle thing of, like, her being a sister and mother to the witches for so long, and now, like, that coming full circle in this regard, you know? I don't know. I get the feeling like if she does come back, it might not be a permanent thing. Like, whatever is happening to her might just be long enough to defeat the Camarilla, and then she dies again. Maybe, maybe not, because it's like, right, allow us to carry the burden, you know, kind of, you finally let it go. So, or like I said, maybe it's just going to be a thing of she's representing, like, the core to the mycelium now. Like, she's going to be the voice, the face that it uses from now on to represent itself. I don't know. I'm really curious to see how this plays out, where season 3 takes us, and ultimately how the series will wrap up with the final season. It's definitely going to be interesting to see. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.